Welcome back, friends. Excited to dive into a special episode covering the music business and, of course, dating. This episode is brought to you by lifespark.bio, your go-to for health, wellness, and longevity. Check us out at lifespark.bio. If you have a wild founder or dating story or just want to say hi, email us hellotalkingphase@gmail.com. I'm Conrad, single, 31, entrepreneur, living in LA for now. Today, I'm fired up to welcome Greer Baxter. Greer is a pop singer-songwriter hailing from New York City. She's published multiple songs, which we're excited to talk about, and has worked on a Grammy-winning album, and has also written for American Idol finalists. Greer, what's up?
Hey, thank you for having me in this special episode. I'm in Nashville right now on a little work trip, and Conrad was dealing with my chaos, so I appreciate that. But super excited to be here and chatting about music and dating and life. And
Let's do it. Let's have fun. So can you give us a quick intro of yourself, just the abridged version? Like you're on a date and someone says, hey, give me your baseball stats.
And they do say that.
Yeah, weirdo.
Baseball stat, I know what weirdo, are as follows. Born and raised in New York, was always wanting to be creative from a young age, was writing poetry, was writing songs, only child, studied poetry in school, but was always doing music, writing music. That's really what I wanted to do, and I just felt I had to do it and was going to make it happen one way or another. Have been doing it full-time for the past almost 3 years. I'm signed with a New York-based publisher as a writer, and that's been really exciting, and I've gotten to meet so many incredible artists, producers. I work with a ton of amazing people. I think before I was signed, a lot of writing to me was solo, which I've really learned is just a fraction of the process. I mean, it's so incredible to write with people. And I have jumped genres now. I do more than just pop. I do country, sometimes hip hop, Oakley.
Nice.
I do folk, indie rock stuff. So it's been an amazing couple of years doing that in New York, Nashville a bit.
I love it. So many thoughts there. So first, I mean, number one, most important, you need to come to LA for Stagecoach if you're
100%
writing country.
I'm there.
Yeah. Okay, good. I'll see you there, obviously. Fun fact, I went to Stagecoach 10 years in a row, high school through college.
Oh my God, did you break your streak?
COVID-19. I don't know. Did you hear about that? The pandemic? Yeah. Broke my streak.
I've just read something about that. Yeah, that was really tough.
Yeah, it was small.
Yeah, that broke a lot of streaks and also the whole world. So yeah.
But so much to unpack there. First and foremost, I would be remiss if I didn't ask. So grew up in LA. Sorry, grew up in New York. Jeez, let's cut that. We'll cut that. What was it like growing up in New York? Because I have friends from Stanford and they grew up in New York and they were saying they were going to clubs as freshmen in high school.
Yeah, that's nuts. I mean, maybe their fake IDs were better than mine, but I was not. I was attempting maybe once or twice to go to a club. No, I think, a misconception about growing up in New York is you grow up too fast. But conversely, you're exposed to so much from a young age in a very positive way. I mean, so many different socioeconomic backgrounds that you're exposed to, cultures, everything. It's a very diverse city. And so I was not going to suburbs as much as I was really, I mean, I was like anyone growing up anywhere. I was going to my high school friends' apartments or hosting at mine or going to the park or going to the museum. It's an activity city. So I was definitely doing activities. And then, of course, in high school, you try to get a little frisky. And I mean, it was funny because when I moved back, everyone was asking for recommendations as if I had bars on lock from when I was 14 years old. So it's been a fun place to sort of be an adult because it's a completely different experience than when I was growing up.
Totally. That's so funny. I just moved to LA and I haven't lived here since high school. And I'm from Pasadena and it's not really a place where you go out. And when I moved back, people are always saying, where should we go out? And it's I haven't been here since I was,
no idea.
16? I have no idea. No, that totally makes sense. Also, hot take on New York. I'm obsessed with New York. I would move back there in a second.
Okay, good.
But when I lived there, I felt like I missed house parties a little bit. I love house parties.
Totally.
Because there's always one degree of separation. It's can I go talk to that girl? She probably knows someone that I know. Versus you're in a bar and they're just get away from me.
100%. I am a big believer in the house party. I try hosting as much as I can. And my parents lived 2 blocks away from me. And I always rope them into hosting my friends as well because they have more space to have more people for these various meetings that I feel are lost at the bar.
We'll throw a big party when I'm back in April, and
absolutely. Oh,
You can
welcome,
perform, and
Conrad.
I'll plug in my iPod Nano and DJ. It'll be
Please,
perfect.
please. Yeah. Good
Okay, so
quality.
how I grew up playing sports, boring, but I've
Oh,
always wondered,
fabulous.
how do people get into creatives, music? You said you're doing this full time now for 3 years. How do you even get into that? Were you just writing growing up and playing instruments? Well, how do you start in that? And then how do you get into it full time? How do you make that
Yeah,
leap?
yeah. Yeah, I mean, my parents exposed me to so many different types of music growing up from a very young age. So that sort of influenced me a bit, and I was put into piano lessons when I was 5, and I just was obsessed with it. I was writing little songs already. And then I was separately writing poetry. And when I turned maybe 8 or 9, I decided to kind of marry the two and try writing. I wanted to write what I liked listening to. That excited me a lot. I was listening to songs I loved, and I was thinking how incredible it would be to write something that I actually wanted to listen to. And my favorite artist was Carole King. So I was really pulling from her a lot, and I was on my little piano. And yeah, so I was writing from a really young age, trying to sort of expose myself to as many different types of music as possible. In high school, I got the chance to meet this incredible jazz musician, Arturo O'Farrell, and his whole team. And I was 16 years old or something, and I was recording some songs, and they pulled me into some projects just to be sort of a fly on the wall. And then I turned from fly on the wall into assistant, and then from assistant into like associate producer. So that was how I first was exposed to the industry piece and the professional aspect of music. I wanted just to get my foot in the door because I knew the barrier to entry is rather extreme in the music business. I always knew I wanted to pivot back to writing sort of pop adjacent
Yeah.
stuff.
I feel like the casual music fan like me, Conrad, doesn't really understand how writing and performing and singing, they all are kind of amalgamated and go hand in hand.
Oh, yeah.
And the example that I always use is Ryan Tedder, the One Republic lead singer, right? He wrote so many songs that you've heard of, and
My
I think
God.
notably was Halo by Beyonce.
Oh, yeah.
And so,
I mean, he's all over
yeah,
everything. It's amazing.
so like, does pretty much everyone sing and songwrite? How does that work? What's the vibe?
No, so it's funny because whenever anyone asks me, like, I always introduce myself as a songwriter because I want it to be clear that I feel that's where my strengths lie. That's also what I want to do. I love not being confined to genre and it's really hard to be an artist, but more than that, I love creating the story and the melody that will resonate with someone who has a fan base. Like, I'm happy to see fans thinking that that person wrote it all by themselves. And just to see people, quoting lyrics that I had a part in or singing a melody I had a part in, that's what I love. I think now more and more artists are all songwriters in some sense. There's varying levels of involvement, of course, but not all songwriters are artists. Many of them are. And I would say most artists would consider themselves writers as well, because they're certainly part of the process. But it is an interesting line. I always hesitate saying like I'm a singer-songwriter because I feel like I have to qualify it, which I don't. But the lines have definitely blurred more and more over time. I think everyone's a little bit of everything.
And speaking of blurred lines, I have to ask ChatGPT, how has that changed how you write songs, if at all?
Fortunately, right now, it's really bad at writing songs, so we're not in jeopardy of that little guy taking over. And I don't use it to come up with lyrics. We already had Rhyme Zone is something that songwriters use a lot, or Rhyme Waves. So for stuff like that, coming up with a rhyme or a word that sounds like something, we use it sometimes. I'm sure certain people are using it more. Right now, it's a tool. It's getting dangerously close to being a writer. But fortunately, it hasn't affected anything too much. I think eventually that will become an issue. Can you copyright something written by AI? Can you win a Grammy for something written by AI? I think will be a conversation that becomes a lot more in the zeitgeist in the next couple of years. But right now, fortunately, I feel generally.
And I feel like at the end of the day, as a casual viewer, it resonates much more knowing that a human wrote something, right, than a computer. It just feels more real.
Yeah, and the suspension of disbelief is easier when even if we're already suspending our disbelief that like this one artist wrote this whole song and it's about his ex-girlfriend or her marriage gone wrong. But when it was written by 6 people who, created a storyline or not. Of course, there's truth in every song. But I think the suspension of disbelief becomes a lot harder when it's a robot and you don't want to sing it in your car because there's no human emotion attached. So I will always want to listen to and read things created by humans. So I think for now, a lot of people are in the same camp.
You've written a lot of awesome songs and have had a lot of success as a songwriter and a singer. My favorite song of yours, fun fact, is your Sweet Escape remix. We talked about that at the beginning. It's epic. But you also a really great song called Natural Causes. What do you want viewers to take away from that? Listeners.
That was a fun one because I came up with the concept. This is so random, but after the Queen died, I was like, wait, how did she die? And everyone was like, she was very old. And I was like, yeah, right, yeah, but like how? Like something had to, like how did she die? I was so sad to think that she could just die of old age. And it occurred to me there's sort of a thread between, everyone kept saying natural causes, and I just kept hearing that as also a way that like relationships end. Sometimes you can't really pinpoint one thing that went wrong or one ailment that caused the demise. But so I thought that was sort of a relatable thread to follow. And then, so I put that one. That was the first song I put out of my own in a while. And that was really fun to do. Because, when I write something by myself, other than, unless I'm pitching it to other artists, I just kind of want it out in the world because I've told a story that I want heard.
Yeah. Yeah. The Queen's death inspires a lot of my writing too.
Totally. Yeah. I know. It was a dark origin story.
Yeah. And what's the biggest misconception people have about being a creative artist, singer, songwriter?
That it's lucrative. No, I'm kidding. I think that it is ever a one-man show. I mean, it is there's such a team going into everything. And it's been so fun to work with so many different types of people because the way a song comes together, there's rarely more than 4 people in a room writing a song, but if it's just so fun to see how if one fewer person was there, that exact song would never have been created. And I don't know, I'm sure a lot of people now that Spotify didn't used to have the song credits like so easily accessible, so a lot of time I never did that growing up, but I would always try to find who wrote what. So I think more and more people are realizing, oh, this person wrote this song, there's 4 people on this song. But I think a misconception is that maybe some of these artists just write it all by themselves.
Yeah.
And I don't want to blow up their spot.
No, for sure. But what, for the casual listener, like what is the hierarchy? How many people does it take to write a song? And who's like the boss? Is it the singer that gets the final say? Like what's the...
I mean, I always defer to the artist because ultimately they have to feel like it's theirs and they have to feel excited to share it. So I guess in my mind, the final boss would be the singer, the artist, because we can weave a beautiful story together, but it has to feel authentic to them. It has to feel like something they want to put out in the world. And in terms of the number of people in a session, it really varies. Sometimes it's just me and an artist. Sometimes it's me, the artist, the producer, and the producer is writing or sometimes not writing. Sometimes if it's a band, there can be 5 of them and me and a producer. So it really varies. And, there's so many different personalities that sometimes a room of 3 feels like a room of 8. Sometimes a room of 8 feels like a room of 2. But it's fun. It's always such an interesting, because, you go into the room with people you may never, first of all, you're just meeting them and you have to write a song together. So you quickly get to know everybody and your whole entire life story and what moves you. And then you put it into a creative process.
Yep. Totally makes sense. So I was a kicker. I was a football player for a long time. And before a lot of games, I would throw up from nerves. When you're performing, do you get nervous?
I used to a lot more, for sure. I used to be an absolute wreck. But now, I really love it. Also, I kind of banter in between my songs at a show. And it turns into miniature stand-up sets between songs, and that started as a way to make myself comfortable. I now see that it also makes the audience kind of more engaged and more comfortable. And so I feel way more excited about performing now. It's such a, because I also am a writer mostly, and I take pride in what I do for other artists. It's always fun to just get up on stage every once in a while. And, it's often a room full of friendly faces and at least other people who are there to see live music and excited about seeing live music. I definitely used to get, the nerves used to be a lot more of an issue. Oh my God, if I were throwing up, I would be in trouble. I was the shyest kid in the entire world, to the point that my parents sent me, I would not speak to anybody but them. They sent me to a musical theater camp when I was really young, which brought me out of my shell a bit. And I did improv in college. And so there were I have sort of the tricks of the trade have worked for my nerves.
Yeah. Is it a fair statement to say singers are typically more extroverted and then the writers are more introverted?
I think it depends. I've met a ton of writers who have really extroverted, big personalities, but and I've also met singers who are so shy. And so actually, oddly, no.
There you
You'd
go.
think there would be
Bad
more
take
of
by
a
Conrad. That's
no.
why I'm not in the
It's
industry.
just great take because it made me ponder.
There you go. There you go. We love hot takes.
Mhm.
Okay, so we met in kind of a cool way through our friend Andy Popova. Shout out Andy. We love
Shout out,
her.
Andy.
We actually met through
Oh
this.
yeah, show them.
Yeah. So
Conrad
I-
sent out epic Christmas cards.
So I send out quick context, and then I would love your thoughts. So I send out a
Mhm.
Christmas card every year, and this year I sent out 1,000. And long story short, I started making TikToks for my company, and literally no one cared. Hey, I'm Conrad. I started this, men's health company. Check us out. And everyone was like, I sleep. And then I just thought, okay, well, how could I try to get an audience? And so I was like, okay, I'm just going to make a TikTok about sending 1,000 Christmas cards. And then that kind of hit. And so I've kind of like followed that rabbit hole a little bit. And so you saw it.
I saw it. I saw it on a fridge, and I scanned your QR code. It was hilarious. It's amazing. It's hilarious, and more people should be sending 1,000 Christmas cards to reach the wider world. I think it was such a great idea. I was particularly struck because I was like, why wouldn't people do this? If you just want to expand your circle and your world, it's just such a great way to do that. And you're also doing something so cool that it's probably really exciting to share with the wider communities.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think, well, one, it takes a lot of time. So,
Yeah,
fun
I know.
fact, I went to 50 weddings and bachelor parties in the last 2 years. I was 2 years out of business school. Everyone gets married. And literally every flight that I would take, I was just like hammering out, addresses and everything. It took a very long time.
Amazing.
Also, stamps are low-key kind of expensive. Inflation is hitting the stamps.
Oh man, they got you with
Yeah.
the stamps.
They got me with it, but it was worth it. I feel like anything you could do for your personal brand is hopefully worth it. And
Total
life
investment.
is short, so why not send out 1,000 Christmas
Totally.
cards? Well,
Stamp
we can
investment.
do a collab next year.
For sure.
Maybe the Christmas card next year we'll scan it and then it'll go to one of your songs. That'd
Now
be sweet.
that's a great idea. I should definitely have done that. Wow.
I love it.
Conrad's
I
an
love it.
ideas guy, everyone.
I'm an ideas guy. Okay, so you have also, I think, done comedy writing. Do you do anything in comedy?
Yeah,
What's
so I was
what's
in
comedy like? I want to be a comedian.
Oh man. Yeah, it was real. I mean, I did it in college. I was in an improv sketch group and I did some stand up.
Nice.
So fun.
Play the
Such a
clip.
good skill.
We're gonna roll the clip.
There's definitely some clips. And
Amazing.
no, I mean, it was the most fun ever. And I actually think improv is just a skill everyone should have. It has just made me so much more comfortable in the world. And yeah, I don't actively do comedy anymore. With Andy, our mutual friend, we wrote a comedy musical that we're working on that we started during COVID. And we met in that comedy group and we just wanted a reason to keep being funny, especially in the darkest of times.
Is the comedy musical similar to Jason Segel's Dracula puppet comedy?
That's hilarious. You are not the first person to say that. I like to think we blow it out of the water, but it's a high bar.
There you go.
Jason's at a high bar.
They're both really good. How do you like New York? How's dating in New York? Give me your hot takes. Give me your cold takes.
Cold takes and hot takes. Here they come. I think dating in New York is really, I don't know why everyone is so horrified by it. I do, actually. Let me start over. My hot take is dating in New York is not that. I think there's so many different types of people that you can meet doing a million different things. There's not any one industry or ethos of the city that bleeds into the types of people you would meet. I've only had like 2 to 4 horror stories. Everyone else has been lovely, but not the love of my life, which is totally fine. But there's certainly not been, I've not felt like dating in New York is this crazy uphill battle of sifting through millions and millions of people to find the one.
One of my good friends, Julia Yorks, she's a screenwriter. Shout out Julia. She wrote a movie. It's called The 7 Guys You Date Before Marriage.
Wow.
Have you dated your 7 guys yet?
No. Well, I mean, you could say that some guys counted as multiple all in one because you had so many different types. There were 3 different dudes in
That's a
different
good take.
parts.
Just get it over.
Take.
Just get
Right,
it. Yeah,
right.
just
You know,
get it
one
over with.
dude
One,
was
have him trauma
three.
dump all of his stuff on you, and then you just
Right.
move forward faster.
One guy who went through 7 different vibes. I think no, maybe I haven't dated my 7 guys before marriage, but I would love to read that screenplay or watch that film.
Yeah.
Sounds
Well, maybe the
interesting.
next guy can be in your DMs after this.
Come on in, gentlemen.
Yeah. Speaking of, what are your thoughts on DMs? Is 2025 the year of the DM?
Totally. I mean, I think it's always been lurking. I actually think it was probably easier to actually date someone via DMs like a couple years ago because it was like, whoa, so like you must really care about me if you're up in here. Now it's like, wait, hold on. Pause because I'm getting a charger delivered to me right now. I think it used to be more novel, so people would really like receive a DM and be like, he must really be fond of me if he's up in here. Now it's a true actual form of dating, so it's probably a more crowded DM, but I still believe you have a distant crush on somebody or you think you do. DM, you just never know.
Yeah, shoot your shot. Life is so short. We're all gonna die, right?
So
Send the DM.
short. It's so short. It's ridiculous.
Whenever I'm talking to buddies and they say, should I send should I send the DM, send another text? My thinking is, if someone's not responding to you, you're at square one.
Yeah.
And so you can't get any worse, right?
We're not getting
the
in
only
negative
worst
square.
thing they could be is like, oh, he's so obsessed with me. He keeps texting me. But obviously don't be creepy, but sending one more text, one more DM, it's like, just do it. Life is short.
Totally. Worst they can say is get out of here nicely.
Yeah, perfect. Which girls love saying to me, which is
Get
fun. Do you typically date people in the industry? Is that like the trendy thing to do?
No, no, church and state for me. I think it's already it's a very intimate thing to write a song with somebody, of course. So everyone always thinks like, in the industry, people do it all the time, of course. My personal, not necessarily a rule, but it's just been what I tend to follow is church and state. Feels like potential drama. And, if the love of my life happens to be in the room, I'm sure it would feel different then. But as my standard rule, no.
Are boys good content to write about, though?
Fabulous. Really
nice.
good. This never-ending well of inspiration.
How old were you when you were first said I love you to someone, and then when you first wrote a song about someone?
Well, the weird thing is I was writing breakup songs when I was 12 and had never even held the hand of a boy, but I was 17 when I said I love you. Actually, I think it was on my 18th birthday I said I love you for the first time.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. It's actually coming out. So yeah, technically I was probably 12 when I wrote a theoretical breakup song that I was pulling from what I thought from the media. And I think it held up. But the first time I wrote a song about someone, I was also 18. About an actual human being that I had dated.
Yeah. What's your biggest turnoff in men? It's a tough one.
So many. Biggest turnoff in men is when they inflict their gym routine onto me. It's like, I'm not that strong. My numbers are going to be different. Like, I'm happy to go with you there, but then we'll part with, like, I don't have to row. You know what I mean? So that's an
Wait, there has to be a story here. Were you like working out all the time with your ex or something? That's so specific.
No, but I was certainly propositioned to so often. And no, I did a couple times, but it's like, I can't row to save my life. I don't need the same structural mass that they do. So
your ex-boyfriend was saying, hey, let's go to Equinox and put up 225 on bench press.
Your words, not mine, but
I don't know. It's what it sounds like.
It's not far off. And I don't even know if those numbers are correct, but the sentiment is correct.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't even, it was. And then I'm sure there's other icks.
We can circle back. What's been the weirdest or worst first date you've been on?
Okay.
I'm excited. 2 OKs.
Yeah. So, I actually have 2, but I'll give you this one.
Oh, I want them both.
I'll give them both. He picked a place. It was a wine bar. Cool.
Nice.
It was
Which
actually
wine
in
bar?
my name. It's in front of it. I'm going to F it up.
You don't have to say the name.
Vincervin or whatever.
Vincervin? Yeah. I know that well.
Yeah. And it was the one in my neighborhood. So I was like, perfect, amazing. We get there. Says he doesn't drink. Obviously, totally fine. But orders 2 glasses of wine. He orders 2 glasses of wine and then says he doesn't drink. I was like, what's up with that second glass? And he was like, that's for you. I was like,
what?
Bold as heck. And I also happened, unfortunately, to know immediately there was not going to be a second date. So now I'm stuck with 2 glasses of wine. He
Yeah.
then, one of the first things out of this dude's mouth is he's complaining about how women are too picky. And I was like, totally, we're the worst. He goes, I just read this stat that more than 65% of women are going to die alone because of how picky you guys have gotten. Literally, like, my butt is barely in the stool. And he's saying this, and now I have 2 glasses of wine to finish. I hope he doesn't watch this. When he was in the bathroom, I asked the bartender if he could, like, dump 2/3 of the glass down the sink so that I didn't have to. Because I was like, I know he's not going to, like, skedaddle until I finish these glasses of wine. But I was like, I'm begging you, give it a dump. And he did. And so it was brief. But that was.
Oh my God. Just
Dude was
straight to the mansplain about how you're the problem, not him.
stats. Throwing stats
That's
at me about how we're the problem.
At least
Yeah,
he
it
came
was.
equipped with stats, as much as we hate him. It is
Oh,
funny, though,
totally.
how men tend to blame problems on exterior, on the world, and women tend to, look more inward, which
100%.
there's a lot that we can unpack there. But fun fact, the 2 biggest predictors of a successful relationship, one is financial stability, right? Makes sense. If you're having a lot of money issues, it's a big predictor of divorce.
Oh,
and
yeah.
second is similar drinking habits.
Interesting. Yeah, I can totally see that. Yeah, and it's rare. I mean, I've been on a million dates, so I've not been on many with people who don't drink at all, which I would never have a problem with. It was just hilarious that he was thrusting double drinks on me. But yeah, it is. I can see how that would affect, because it also is sort of a social thing, and that you just.
It's a reflection on kind of how you want to spend your weekends, right? It's a microcosm of a bigger thing. Obviously, people can not drink, and one person drinks and be happy. Like, my mom drinks socially. My dad doesn't drink at all, and they've been married for 40 years. So obviously, it's not a one-to-one.
Oh, I gotta hear that. I gotta hear their stories.
Yeah. Well, I want to hear second bad date first.
Okay, this one was just so weird.
Oh my God. This is coming from the person who said dating in New York is the best, too, by the way.
I know it is, because I can, like, fortunately, there's actually 3. I'm trying to think of the second one that's going to be. I'm going to do this one. So this was like years ago now, but I matched with a guy on Hinge. We chatted for a bit, or I started to get just general weird vibes, so I just stopped responding. He was quintuple messaging, whatever, fine. Like, I didn't unmatch him or anything. I was just moving along.
Too much.
It's like 6 months later. And I've never met this man. I have a show at the Mercury Lounge in New York. I mean, I guess it's like public knowledge, but I'm certainly not on a billboard in Times Square. This was it was an early show of mine. And I do the show. It's a blast. After the show, this dude comes up to me. Never seen him in my life, in my head. And he's like, do you remember me? He was like, great job. Do you remember me? And I was like, no, I thought I'm a jerk for misremembering a person I actually know. He goes, do you remember me? I'm like, no, I'm so sorry. So sorry. He goes, it's Nathan from Hinge. You ghosted me. And I was like,
my God.
I hurriedly we had a 2 back and forth, and then you got a little weird with the emojis, and I just kind of bounced. I was like, oh my God. Hey, so great of you to come.
So good to see you.
How the heck are you here? And then he was like insisting that I go on a date with him right then after the show.
Jeez.
I was like, I got my people here, buddy. I can't. But thank you so much for somehow finding this ticket and coming.
Yeah.
So
unequivocally, the least attractive thing someone can say to you is, do you remember me, or do you know my name? I hate it when people say that to me. Do you remember me? Do you know my name? It's like they're just trying to trap you.
Yeah.
And like 99.9% of the time when people have said that to me, I do not know their name.
Yeah. And then I'm not going to know your name. So like, if I did, I would have run up to you and given you a big hug. And I was not doing
Nathan
that.
from Hinge. Oh my God.
Yeah, Nathan from Hinge.
Texted me 10 times. It's so good to see you. Now I love you. Yeah, it's almost like they're trying to get like a win, an upper hand against you, saying, oh, you don't remember my name. You need to feel bad now.
Right. I've come to your show. I was like, okay, unsolicited Nathan at my show.
Brutal. Nathan taking the L. Was Nathan there solo? That's even crazier. That's crazy.
Lurking in the back.
Lurking at the back. It would only would have been better if he brought you 2 glasses of wine. It was like, hey, these 2 are for you.
He's like,
guess which one is
you're going to
roofie?
die alone. Yeah, exactly.
Oh my God. That's insane.
So, those are definitely the 2 most memorably shitty ones.
Mm-hmm. Dating apps. What are your thoughts?
I mean, again, I haven't been on a million dates on them, but I've definitely met very cool, very nice people on them. I would say mostly Hinge. The problem with both, I'm only on Hinge and Raya. The problem with both is like you'll match with a bunch of people and the turnover rate to a date is rather slim. I mean, it's just because it's a numbers thing, and I forget about names that are there. They probably forget. So it's just a tough. That's my biggest critique, is that it's just too crowded of a place. It can be overwhelming.
Yeah.
But again, generally, I also think the good people are behind a paywall, which is rude. But
Whoa, hot take. Yeah. Dating apps, I feel like they're a necessary evil.
Mhm.
Have never seriously dated someone that I met on a dating app. I've been on dates with people from
Same.
dating apps, to your point, who are
Same.
great. I think the hard thing is you're making something out of nothing. And
I know.
when you meet someone's friend or you get set up with someone, you have that mutual connection. Versus when you meet someone on Raya, you're literally at zero. You have no mutual friends. Obviously, there are exceptions, but it's hard to go from zero to good in a 90-minute drinks day at Been Serving wine bar, right?
Totally. Yeah, and there's just a level of comfort that if you don't have, again, being set up with a friend or even meeting someone at a birthday party and you know that they know someone, you're already like a little comfortable with them, so you can actually get to know them at a second level. When you're starting from like, hi, nice to meet you, how many siblings do you have, where are you from? It's just, for me, it's just hard to connect because who are you? But
Yeah.
so I totally agree with that.
I just like compartmentalize them, and I go to the gym every day, and then a couple days a week I just walk on the incline treadmill and I just go through all the dating app messages and I just crank them out. And outside of that time, I never open up the app.
Yeah, no, that's kind of what you have to do. It's because it's so daunting. Otherwise, you're like, God, there's like,
yeah, Nathan's lurking
around. Yeah.
So take us through a day in the life. Right now you're in Nash, writing jams.
Right now I'm
what
in
do you
Nash writing
do
some
as a
jams.
full-time music person?
So it's usually, we call them a writing session every day, or most days, not every day. Sesh every day, or most days. Different studios depending on the artist or the producer. They could be a totally new person I've never worked with before, or someone I've written many songs with. And we get into the studio. Sometimes the artist has a concept that they really want to work on. Sometimes they ask me for a concept, or we all noodle until we find something. But it generally starts with a concept, and then we use like a reference track, like we want it to kind of sound like this, and then we write the whole song. We produce most of the song, and we leave that session after however many hours with the song. And that's what my days look like, which is the best, because I take somebody to a session without a song and I leave with my AirPods in listening to something that we just made that didn't exist 8 hours before.
That's really cool. Creating things, I find that, at least in Conrad's world, I worked at McKinsey. I was a consultant for a long time. And I found that the hardest part was starting, like getting the first words on the page, the first words on the PowerPoint. Is that the same with songwriting?
Sometimes it can come at different points, but definitely, I think coming up with the really never before heard or never before said in this specific way concept is the hardest part, in my opinion. Once you have that, you know that however long it takes, you're going to get a storyline there. But coming up with your twist or your story that you want to tell is the hardest part. And then I like starting with a chorus so that you know what you're building towards, and then the rest.
Yeah. That's interesting. You start the chorus. That's fascinating.
I like starting there. I don't always, but I think there's nothing like a good chorus. So if you just have a rockin' chorus, you know where you're heading, so you can write a better story.
That's fascinating. And how do you feel about these pop songs? They use the repeated lyrics, right? You think about all these big pop singers, the chorus just repeats. Isn't that because it makes you, like, people like repetition?
Yeah, I mean, repetition for especially earwormy songs, as they call them. Like, there's a ton of pop songs that if you were to play them acoustically, you'd be like, that's not a great song, but it's super catchy and it's in my head like nobody's business. A lot of that is repetition. A lot of that is oddly sort of monotonous and melodic lines. I think they're awesome. I think I think pop music, you asked me earlier about some misconceptions about music. I think pop gets kind of a bad rep of like being way too mainstream or commercial or lame, right? But it's actually not. It's an art. Every genre is art, but even writing those like hilariously repetitive hooks to make it that catchy is still hard, and to make a beat that accompanies it that doesn't sound like a million other beats is hard.
Yeah.
So I don't write a ton of that kind of pop. I can salute those who
For
do.
sure. I feel like my brain always goes to Call Me Maybe. Hey, I
That's
just
a
met you.
masterpiece. That is a
And
masterpiece.
it's obvious. I feel like that's quintessential pop, and it's so catchy. If everyone could do that, then every song would be that popular. Right? It's
100%.
obviously hard on some level. I don't know what I'm talking about, but
I mean, Teenage Dream, truly one of the best pop songs of all time. You make me feel like I'm living out. See, I mean, it's two
Teenage
notes.
Dream,
It's
the
bop
way
in
you turn
between.
me on.
Okay, I mean, it's so catchy, and it is two notes essentially, bopping back and forth. Same rhyme scheme for those first couple lines. I mean, it's just like I love that song. I just think some of those pop songs that we think of as quintessential, like 2008 to 2012 pop, they're kind of songs of an era for a reason, because they are as simple as you might think they are, and as simple as they may seem. They're doing something to our brains that keeps us coming back.
For
Call Me
sure.
Maybe, masterpiece. Whether that's a hot take or not, I don't know.
It's a great take by me.
Thank
So
you.
I have two nieces who I can already tell they're musically inclined, just playing little things. If you were to give them advice on how to be a musician or a songwriter someday, what would it be?
You have to do it a lot. Say yes to everything. If you have, and I mean, that's one thing that I learned early on trying to be a songwriter. I said yes to everything. I said yes to Zoom performances during COVID with 2 people watching. I said yes to live shows with 2 people watching. I said yes to, a class or a workshop, or just do it on your own a bunch. I would also say, if you want to write songs, listen to and read the lyrics of songs that you love, and kind of map them out and then try to do it yourself. But I mean, you have to be of the mindset that no, nothing is too beneath you to participate in it, because you just never know. It was actually on a Zoom performance that my now publisher, was watching, and she emailed me after, and 6 months later signed me to a publishing deal. And I was about
No
to
way.
absolutely, I was so pissed I had to do this Zoom show. I was like, ugh, I have to play the piano. It's going to be delayed. There's going to be 2 people watching. It was COVID. So there were actually more than 2 people watching, because that's all that was happening. But, everyone's screen is off, and it didn't feel like my heart wasn't in these Zoom shows, but I was like, you have to do it to be heard. You have to play to be heard. You have to sing to be heard. You have to practice to be heard. And so you really never know.
Yeah, that's really good advice, Greer. And I think there's beauty in saying yes, obviously within reason,
Completely.
but putting yourself out of your comfort zone and doing things. My personal example that I always tell is when I was in high school, I was getting recruited to colleges for football. And there was one coach at Fresno State who kept sending us letters, kept emailing me. And at that time, I knew I was either going to Harvard or Stanford. And so I just, Fresno State's a great school, but it just wasn't for me at that time. And so we were driving from Stanford, me and my mom, back to Pasadena, where I'm from. And my mom said, hey, you should stop by Fresno State. This coach has come by our house. You should really just go and see him. And I was like, Mom, I'm not going to go there. Let's not waste our time. Long story short, my mom convinced me. She said it's the right thing to do. We stopped. We met the coach. That off season, Fresno State's coach went to Stanford, and he became my coach for my entire Stanford career.
That's amazing. That is absolute ethos of what we're talking about. That is pinnacle. Say yes, because you just never know. That is really awesome.
100%. 100%. One more question, music. So I feel like the labels get a lot of flack, right? You hear Macklemore's song, like, I don't have a label. The labels are the devil. Is that true?
I think it depends. Some labels, it really depends on the deal, on the artist, and the label. Generally, I wouldn't just say blanket, they're the devil. I think there's some really bad deals, and some of them, I know a lot. I work with artists that are signed and artists that are totally independent for various reasons. And I think, fortunately, there's so many platforms now where you can be independent if you get the traction and you have a fan base. Labels are always looking for numbers, but it's ironic because it's like, how do you get the numbers without the label? Unless you get lucky on TikTok or Reels or something. But I think there's no hard and fast rule about it. I think more and more it's okay and exciting to be an independent artist, but I also think labels are still always discovering and developing new talent. Even if we don't know it, like Shabuzi, developed, all these types of artists we don't know Chappell Roan was signed to a label all these years before her meteoric rise. And of course there's tons of, you can get in the weeds about there were some bad deals along the way and bad experiences in the business, but I think labels are still doing labely things. It's also really awesome to be an independent artist and own all of your own stuff and be able to put it out there with no barriers. That was like the most Switzerland answer of all time. But
No, it was good. You're in the game. I get it. I feel like in my mind, I always think of TikTok, and I really like Benson Boone, and I feel like he blew up on TikTok, and so it is kind of cool to see that that's a path.
100%. I mean, he is huge.
Huge.
There's a ton of those. Too. Noah Khan was a TikTok of TikTok fame.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was doing all these folks were doing music before, but it was just like their moment came because of a beautiful algorithmic.
Right.
Moment.
The OG is JB, right? Justin Bieber getting seen by Usher on YouTube.
That little clip, I love watching that. Yeah, I mean, I love, and Billie Eilish was found from some SoundCloud clip for a class that she wrote a song with Phineas for. So, I think that is one really cool part of the ever-evolving industry, which is there's always odd ways and platforms of getting discovered. But it's still really hard to break through because it's even more crowded than ever.
For sure. But we persevere.
We do.
Okay, we're going on to some fun stuff now. So I'm going to ask you a question, and you just give me a one-word answer, if possible.
Okay.
Who's the most talented singer you've worked with?
Oh, this is like devastating. This is the end of my career.
You can pass, or you can just say yourself, or I can lay down some bars, and you can say me.
I'm going to say you. Talented singer I worked with.
It's a tough question.
That is really tough.
Come back. It's
we'll
hard.
Come back.
You don't want to. I feel like that's asking, someone who their favorite child is.
Truly. If their child could fire them.
When you're writing a song, what instrument do you start with? Generally, piano. Dream collab.
Gracie Abrams.
Most overrated New York City trend.
Waiting in line.
Song you're most proud of.
Not My Man by Jillian Rossi.
Perfect. Ideal first date.
Jazz club.
Ooh. Wine or martinis?
Ooh, at this point, wine.
Fair. Instagram or TikTok?
Instagram.
Celebrity crush.
Mark Amber.
One word to describe dating in New York.
Chaotic.
What's next for Greer Baxter?
Songwriter of the year.
Heck yeah.
Just don't ask for a timeline on that, but if the next is a proverbial next.
We believe. Worst excuse you've used to get out of a commitment or a date?
That's not true, or that's true.
Just the worst excuse. Maybe you just go to everything. Maybe you're better than me.
No, that's definitely not the case. Pipe burst in my closet.
Was that real?
It was real. It was real-ish. It was real-ish.
That
should not have precluded me from going to the thing. But yeah.
Hottest thing someone's ever said to you?
It was pretty hot. It was recently.
Oh.
He said something like, "Poetry is the highest form of expression." But it was like from someone who I would never expect to say that. And I was like, "Ooh,
dang, go off, king."
No.
And what do they say? Sarcasm is the lowest form. So
I stopped listening after that. I was.
There you go. One word to describe your husband.
Kind.
Who will win the Super Bowl, Eagles or Chiefs?
Eagles. They better.
Nice. Go
I'm
Birds.
Tired of that. I'm tired of the dynasty. No offense to Taylor.
No offense. None taken. Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce. One word.
If I can hyphenate in our face, that would be my word. But I'll say powerful.
It's a good one. Who's the worst popular artist?
Oh my gosh.
It's gonna blow up. This will be a great clip. We can add them in the comments.
The worst popular artist?
Is there someone who's notoriously bad as an insider? Maybe not.
I know, like Maddie B Raps. Do you remember that guy?
Oh my God. I do remember that kid.
I'm gonna have to rock
That's
with
a good
him.
one. That's a good answer.
He was the first
kudos
one
to him.
rock with my mom. Yeah, no, kudos to him.
Would you date a DJ?
Is he moonlighting as a DJ or is he a full-time DJ?
Moonlighting.
Yeah.
Okay.
I did a moonlighter.
All right, I'm gonna start DJing. Most awkward run-in or place you've been recognized? The Hinge one's pretty good.
Yeah, that's probably, that was awkward as heck. So I'm gonna have to go with that.
Okay. I love it. Greer, where can people find you if they want to follow along? And they're now your new number one fan.
I would say Greer Baxter Music on Instagram is where everything is. That's where I am. That's where it all is. Greer Baxter Music.
I love it. Awesome. Well, thank you for coming on. This has been super fun.
Oh my God. Thank you
everyone,
so much for
don't forget
me.
to subscribe, leave a review, follow us at The Talking Phase. If you've got a story or just want to roast our dating life, email us hellotalkingphase@gmail.com. Greer, anything else before we go?
No, thank you so much for having me. It's awesome what you're doing. I can't wait to watch other episodes and never watch my episode. And this is awesome.
No, you're crushing.
And can't wait for our joint house party. April, New York. Everybody, you're invited.
Let's go.
Wow.
We're renting out the biggest club in New York. And it's going to
Precisely.
be called Greer and Conrad's Really Fun Party. We'll work on the branding.
Put it in your cows. Yeah.
Love it. Awesome. Thanks, Greer.
Thank
Talk
you so
soon.
much.